How much ego do you need in your business? Some people now might think of their former boss or their former leader. No, this is not about pointing out who did how bad on a scale from 0 to whoever you might now think of. This is about if you're running a business based on either content and value, or if you run a business based on ego and how you are able to find out. Because often ego plays an important role in businesses where first, it shouldn't, and second, you would not think that ego is the issue here. Ego, however, if we look into what just happened only last week, is an important aspect, and some people did well, some people not so much. So when we talk about the case of Dante Wright, another case of police violence in the United States, a young man killed during a police control, and Kamala Harris said, we need justice and healing, not thoughts and prayers. Let's be very clear, both President and Vice President, so Vice President Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden, both of them are Christians, made unambiguously clear that they are Christian and that they stand up for Christianity in the office as well. And we know that in the United States, these aspects are a lot more important than they are in many other countries. Religion, especially, for example, in Europe, is less important in not all areas, but many areas, especially in politics, even in Spain, where, many people are very Catholic. The Prime Minister is an atheist. So Kamala Harris speaks up against her own belief system here and against her own religious faith, and says thoughts and prayers, the statement that Americans normally make when something goes terribly wrong and people die, in this case through police violence and racism, an institutionalized and systemic issue in the United States of America. She says thoughts and prayers are not enough because we need justice and healing. Joe Biden even called it an international embarrassment. However, many people don't think of ego in politics. Many people think of ego in free enterprise. Just last week, Bernie Madoff died. Bernie Madoff, 82 years of age when he died, was sentenced to 150 years in jail after his global Ponzi scheme of scams and fraudulent investment collapsed during the 2008 crisis. But it's not only in the United States what you might think. In Germany, we have a candidate who has ambitions. Well, he always turns up when there's a gap he thinks he spotted to just jump into politics in a senior leadership position. Friedrich Merz, a lawyer, an excellent qualified lawyer, former member of the board of directors or the controlling board of BlackRock. And let's face it, he is very well qualified and he is very sharp, very smart and intelligent man. And he made a statement against gender-correct, gender-appropriate language. In the German language, you have different articles which are either neutral, male or female, which sparks debate how language should develop in the future. And he on Twitter put a rant, which you would expect from someone who sits in a pub or a bar and had a couple of drinks too much. Then people would say something like that. And I think he thinks that this was a really smart move, while the public perception was pretty much the exact opposite. And of course, we can discuss if gender and language should align to each other and how we need to design that in the German language in the future. However, just imagine you go in your organization to a project meeting and you would say, and I apologize for the words I use now, it's only to demonstrate what kind of rant we heard from that person. Just imagine you go to your office, either in the US or in the UK or wherever you're now listening. You sit down and you just tell the project team, listen, this is all shit. It's a pile of crap. No one of you has a clue. It's all utter bollocks. And we really need to deliver results. But you twats, you fuckwits are unable to get anything done, and it's time that we remove you and replace you with me. So again, sorry for the words I just used. I had to do that to get across what kind of rant we found from Friedrich Merz. At the same level. He didn't use insulting swear words, but it was on the same level of language. Do you think that you would reach any of your goals? Do you think you would achieve any of your goals in your organization with that kind of language? Probably not. But let's face it, we have to look at ego in a way that we see, why do people fall for their own egos? Because as we all know, and as I often said before, personality promotes your business, but ego eliminates your business. That's the phrase I often say: personality promotes and ego eliminates your business. The problem is that often when you have people who have a very high level of qualification, and I'm not talking about formal qualification, we have some people who are formally very well qualified and still they don't get anything done or their results are really bad. I talk about highly intelligent people, and no matter if you like lawyers or not, when you come from an elite law firm, the level of abstraction and the level of knowledge you have about a certain very specialized topic is in the top 0.1% of society. That doesn't mean you use it ethically or morally in a correct way. It does not mean that you have to agree with them, but we have to accept that, for example, specialized people, specialized doctors, specialized lawyers, specialized teachers, anyone who's specialized in a certain area for decades is excellent in what they're doing. And that is one part of the problem. So when we see that a very high level of qualification suddenly meets an environment with no friction and no one dares to speak up against them. So suddenly you have and that's the second part of the problem, a structure where criticizing someone is inappropriate. Often you hear about people suddenly being called the rock star, the shooting star, the guru of topic XYZ. And calling people the guru of XYZ pretty much tells you, listen to them, do not criticize, consume what they offer you, and without questioning anything, do what they say. And this culture is the issue. And this is what Bob would want. Bob would want, someone you might probably not know. Some of you might still remember Bob Woodward. Bob Woodward is someone who brought the Nixon scandal, to life. Not to life. He put it into the newspapers. Bob Woodward was the one who said that, and he published it back in the 70s, that Nixon has a lot of wrongdoings towards the other people's campaigns against the Democratic Party. At the end, Nixon had to step down. So the whole Watergate scandal was published by Bob Woodward. And he always talked about the treacherous curtain of deference. And I think that is a very smart term. I don't agree with anything. I don't agree with everything Bob Woodward then does. For example, working with TV stations like Fox News, etc., something which, in my opinion, reasonable journalists should not do. But that's his choice. I don't have to agree with him. But saying that there is a treacherous curtain of deference, that's a very smart statement. When you have someone in your organization where people tell you, don't criticize, don't speak up, don't you dare to say anything against this person. That is the moment where you are losing momentum to develop your organization to the level it should be developed. And that happens in different contexts. No matter if you invite a guru speaker to your event, or you have a proper professional speaker, which I always would recommend to do, instead of some pseudo-gurus. It happens in training sessions, it happens in coaching or consultancy sessions, and even in mentoring projects, project interim management, very common in nowadays times. I do not, even when people book me to work for their organization, I do not want that people, without thinking, accept everything I say. The core of democracy and the core of the best results possible for every organization is in the discussion. Challenge what I say, criticize me, and then we can have a discussion. But a discussion is never a rant. A discussion is always focused on content. And here we now are at the core of the problem and how to do it better. When you are in an organization and the structure says, don't criticize anyone, and that is part of the issue, how to do it better. So step number one, give people feedback, but proper feedback. Good feedback. I am now doing my 6th training course on feedback because feedback constantly evolves. Society has a different perception of feedback. Science finds out more and more how to do feedback properly, how it works. You will see on my social media profile probably within the next 1 or 2 weeks that I completed this course, hopefully, in case I pass all the exams, of course, which I hope I will. But delivering excellent feedback, which means more than how are you doing, delivering excellent feedback is needed to have an organization which reflects on their own actions. Because as soon as you move outside the circle, and that is aspect number 2 of how to do it better, you have to move outside the circles which you automatically move into and hang out with. I'll just give you an example. When you work for a major law firm, maybe one of the top 5 law firms or consultancy companies or top 5 hospitals, you will have a very hand-picked small amount of people who you hang out with. Normally people, same level of education, most likely, especially in societies we live today, most likely the majority is male and white, most likely heterosexual and cisgender. So these people, many of them will have grown up in privileged circumstances. So it is not even your fault that you do not see certain issues in the organization, but it's your fault if you deliberately do not even try to change that. I just give you one aspect of my life where, just by coincidence in this case, I have an easier access to different problems of society. Because I am not married, as you know. Many know I'm an outspoken member of the LGBT. LGBT community, came out at the age of 19. I am not married. I'm single. That was an active life choice. And due to that, I still frequently like to go out. I like to go out during the weekends. Of course, during the pandemic, that of course did not happen. I like to go out to electronic music clubs. And electronic music clubs, which is something which no one will ever understand who wasn't there. When you don't like electronic music, by the way, you don't have to go to electronic music clubs because it won't be enjoyable to you. But electronic music is a community. It's a community experience, and you meet people from different backgrounds, different ages. And because of the fact that I also frequently am in London, have my business in London, I'm traveling pretty much around Europe normally, not during the pandemic, of course, where I didn't travel at all, because that's the sensible choice to do. When you are located somewhere where diversity is the norm, for example, in this case, the electronic music community, and especially in London, I also met via the British and Irish Speaking Association, PSA UKI. I met people who live in London for a long time. One of them is Alan Stevens, who now became an excellent friend and mentor, who showed me to different music clubs. So I also saw jazz and blues music clubs. So when I look at my circle of friends, they are very diverse from different ages, nations, and regions. And the age reaches from the youngest are probably 18 or 19 years old, basically just finished school or starting their studies or their vocational training. And the oldest, in high commas, oldest people are in their mid-70s. So I see different social, so-called tiers of society. I see their issues and I talk to them, which is a huge benefit in my work as a trainer, consultant, etc. This, of course, is easier for me because I'm not married, I don't have family, I don't have children. As soon as you are married, have family and children, you normally have certain circles where you meet people. And this is work, school, and then events, which are often connected either to family, work, or school. So you limit yourself down. That is not an excuse, not at least from time to time. Try to touch base and look where are the issues on operational level in your organization and what you should never do. So move outside the circle of people you, by coincidence, hang out with, and this coincidence is based on your career, family, and life choices. As soon as you try to leave these circles, it is more than just asking people, how are you? So I just give you an example. When you are, let's say, a senior leader on board level, and you are responsible and accountable for the global sales force of your organization, or your regional sales force, or your countrywide sales force. So for your sales force, you cannot know what the operational problems are people have in today's times. Because when you tell them, oh, I know all the issues because I have the same issues, no. When you did that job, if you ever did it, it's 20 years ago. People reacted differently on the phone, on different communication channels. Everything you did back in these days was working completely differently. And it's very important that you are able to look through the eyes of the other person, empathy it's called, that you think, what is now happening there? And you can't find out by just trying to feel it. You have to talk to the people, sit down with them, and you must be open to them criticizing you. But this can only happen when you have a culture where people are openly allowed to speak up when something is going wrong, and you don't try to shut it down as soon as someone just takes a breath to open their mouth. So every mistake, and that is the core learning here for each and every senior leader, every mistake starts with you. I know this is a hard pill to swallow, but most problems in organizations happen due to an institutionalized culture of not criticizing each other, and this is multiplicated top down. So when it's bad on the highest level, it is the worst on the lowest level. And then you have these rock stars, shooting stars, senior leader, gurus, where everyone says, don't criticize that person, that person, that person. And your organization will not survive in the future because your innovation will be very not really innovative. So you have a low level of innovation, you have a low level of creativity, and that simply means that the competitiveness your organization has will not be very appealing to many clients, which means someone will overtake you. And with the next disruptive change on your market, you might be history. And we had, just to give you an example, we had major disruptions in the law area where suddenly senior and very well-known law firms had to shut down during the crisis in New York City. We had major companies, healthcare companies, production companies disappearing from the market. We had major disruptions in the financial world. And this always happened due to excellent experts coming together, great qualification in many cases, then meeting no friction, no criticizing. The whole structure is set up in a way that you don't criticize them. And this, as Bob Woodward says, treacherous curtain of deference. The treacherous curtain of deference simply means that your organization signed a contract of accepting misbehavior and just moving on. And that is never helpful. How to do better? Give feedback, move outside the circles you normally hang out with, and also when every mistake begins with you, and please internalize that. Please always think of every mistake in the organization, every error, every wrongdoing starts with you because it was institutionalized top down. When you know that every error begins with you, every wrongdoing, every piece of misbehavior, you know that every solution also begins with you. And talking about solutions to challenges, we have an excellent expert, a global expert here with us today, someone who has a business which is women-owned and minority-owned, and who now wrote an international book with people from, I think, 5 or 6 continents, and this book is coming out just this week. So you will have an excellent interview just right after this. So first, of course, I have to thank you for your time, and thank you very much for listening to me up to this point. But now the best part of this show is about to begin. And here we start with the interview. Leading in the world and being outspoken is challenging for many. However, some people are just born to do that. I know the author and expert we have with us today for a very long time. I saw her speak all over the world, and she truly is an outspoken leader for the right and good cause. Hello and welcome, Pegine Echevarria.
Hello, I'm so glad to be here. You know that you're one of my people that are fighting to do what's right in the world. So I'm excited to be with you.
Thank you very much. And I'm getting straight into the topic. You are about to publish a book which is called Called to Lead, Success Strategies for Women. So, of course, when it comes to diversity, I have to ask the very first question. You live in the US. Is it a book of 17 female American authors talking about running US businesses?
No, absolutely not. This is good. The Power Women Worldwide movement is a global movement. And so the authors represent the diversity of the world. So our authors from countries are diverse, from Taiwan to Austria to Australia to the UK to the US to Ecuador. So we're cross continents, we're there, but we're also individuals from across industries. So we're giving a depth and a breadth of leadership and insight and wisdom from many different perspectives. We're also, ethnically, religiously diverse. And that gives a richness, because it was important to me to have the richness of the world and humanity to be represented in the book to the best of our ability.
Excellent. And I remember when you started the project, it is not the usual book where someone just writes a random article and then here's the book and let's go for it. You have a certain special structure of every author, how they contribute towards the book. Can you explain a bit more what is special about the book?
So the book, everybody that came in heard about the vision of our desire to reach out, share our insights, our wisdom, our experience, our hope from having led. And so this book was designed specifically for those women who are literally called to lead. The fire in them is that they've been doing this since they've been young. They keep on raising their hand. They keep on saying they're going to be, you'll lead this. Mary will lead this. Sonia, you'll run this group. And it's so natural for us to lead. Mm-hmm. And as we move up in leadership, we need the support and help. So it wouldn't serve, since the intent is, how do we serve those women, those unique, powerful women who are called to lead? How do we help them? So there needs structure. There needs a series of plans to make sure that we can serve them and they feel consistency. So every author was given an assignment to fill in the answer these questions. The first one was, why? Why is this important? How were you called to lead? So they answered the why question. The second was, what is a quote that you live by? Every single one of us, and it wasn't somebody else's quote. What is your quote? What is your mantra that you have lived by? And why is that important? So that's a section of that. It was, what is the advice you have for women? So it's them giving their advice for women who are called to lead. And then the final is action steps for her, which is, what are the action steps that a woman can take in the next 24 to 1 week that will have an impact in her own skill set, her own emotional state, her own fiery power that she could use immediately to bolster herself up. So everybody share that. And what's really interesting, Niels, is the experience when you're reading it is as though somebody has interviewed them to share their truth. And these women have been vulnerable, open, real in this book. So it's a guidebook, it's a handbook, it's a inspirational mantra book. It's all of that wrapped around. And it does cover all aspects of leadership, of a woman who is called to lead. So it covers from remote and virtual leadership to leading a movement to advocating for, how do you advocate for a woman's goals that you could use your influence to change things? How do you take care of your own mental health and your own family, right? Because we're we're like an octopus. We're not just a leader. We have our arms of the octopus, where we are doing so many things. And in all aspects, we're leading, whether it be our family, whether it be our business, whether it be our volunteerism and our activities. We are doing all of that. And so this book encompasses all of that.
Brilliant. So when we now talk about 18 different authors, I know that you're a globally booked speaker. However, did you meet all these people during your travels and speaking gigs? Or how did you find the 18 people, the 18 women who contributed to this book?
Great question. So two things. One is on my own, I run something called the Power Women Pro, which is a organization, it's a free Facebook group of experts, leaders, authorities, and coaches from around the world who are paid for their brilliance. And so we put out I did some videos and shared the vision. And so people started saying, I want to be part of that. Then we expanded it to ask on LinkedIn and my own networks, just reaching out, would you be interested? And then those people started, some of the people who started signing up and saying, let me share it with their people, which provided us with a very eclectic group that to play and participate that was quite interesting. I mean, I did not know. I would probably say of the 18 women, I only personally knew 3.
Mm-hmm.
All the rest came from either having seen the call to participate and wanting to be part of the movement, or they came from a couple of the authors who were referring them in.
Great. So it's not just Pegine picked her best friends to write a book together.
No, and so thank you for sharing that. So it's definitely not. I didn't pick you because you're my friend. I also didn't.
How often this happens in the industry? Often when you have books of different authors, they are already best buddies and they just throw their articles together and publish a book. How often this happens in our industry. That's why I'm asking.
Oh yeah, no, these are definitely not my, personal friends. They've become friends, and we're still not personal friends, but we're working colleagues for sure. And the other part about it was the desire to ensure that it wasn't people that just were looking to ride on my coattails. These were individuals who have they're seasoned people. They don't need to do this. Do you know what I mean? They don't need, in our industry, people are like, oh, let's all run and do this anthology. And then this is my first book.
Yeah.
And then you see the disparity of the writing that is so uncomfortable to read, right? You read one chapter and it's like, oh, that's a great chapter. Then you read the chapter like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's basically thrown together random articles where anyone just puts out whatever they wanted to say and focus more on what they want to say instead of caring what the reader needs to hear or wants to hear.
Exactly. And what was really fascinating about we were able to structure the book into 4 segments of from, I'm going blank on my different 4 structures. So why am I talking about it? Leadership of power, leadership of love, leadership of a movement, so that we have 4 different segments. And so the authors, I just filtered those through. The other thing that we did, which now that I'm talking to you, is just like, I don't even acknowledge it, is that not only did I have editors who are reviewing it from Panoma Press, but Cindy Cheshak, who's a professional ghostwriter and editor, also reviewed many of the chapters and used her brilliance of editing. So this is every single one of the authors went through a fine-tooth comb of was it eloquent? Was it consistent in the message? Did you, when you read it, do you feel flow? So while they gave their words, the words were then wordsmithed so that they were shined in their highest, most brilliant way. And the book itself was valuable because I personally am sending 100 of these books to corporate leaders, heads of diversity and inclusion that are in my contact system. I'm not going to send a piece of crap.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's always important to focus on quality, of course.
Well, it's quality, and is it reflective of who each of our authors are and who I am, right? I can be vocal, and I've changed my life in many, many ways. I wanted to make sure that all of us, when we held the book, when we talked about the book, there was a sense of pride and enthusiasm and passion for the readers and passion for the movement so that transformation occurs.
When you spoke to round this interview up, because some people might now sit there and think, I think that's a great inspiration, but some people might now hesitate, because I remember you started, for example, the Power Women Group and Association we both were a member of in the past, and we know how many resistances you had to face when you were in for true change. And some people might now say it's really important to do that, but I fear the backlash which I might see. So to round this interview up, what are Pegine Echevarria's top 3 tips for people who think, I want to change the world in the right direction, but I just fear what might happen to myself when I try to do so?
Great question. So here are the 3 things that I know is true. If you're feeling the call, you have to know that you're going to constantly feel that call. And that call is your adventure. And to fulfill your own destiny, you have to speak up, because otherwise it'll eat within you. So that fear change that fear to excitement. Instead of saying I'm afraid, say I'm excited, because really the emotional state is the same, right? Your blood starts running, you start running, it starts coursing through your veins. Yep. The second thing is, if you are called, because that yearning, that desire to say something is called into you, you are being asked by you, however you believe, your faith is being said, this is why I put you on earth, to speak up, to share. So if you're feeling it inside of you, you must follow that, because that's part of your destiny. And people hold themselves back because they'll say, well, I just don't want to rock the boat. If you were feeling this inside, you were called to rock the boat. And it's an adventure, and it's awesome. And let me tell you something, number 3, they're not going to hurt you. Number 3, they are so not, they may use their words, they may have temper tantrums, they're like freaking toddlers. Go to the corner, sit down, be quiet, I'm moving. This is what needs to be said. And when you start recognizing, I get really excited about this stuff, if you noticed.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you start recognizing that, their people's behaviors towards you are really the behaviors towards themselves. And so it's really not about you at all. It's their own mindset. And if you are called to speak up, you are a brilliant, shining light that is illuminating for those around you to say, there's another way of looking at this world, and you need to change your perspective. And certainly I've had people yell at me, scream at me. Yeah, I feel like, what's the name of that original rapper that had the funny clothes? You can't touch me. You can't touch me.
I know.
Right?
MC Hammer, I think it was.
Yes, MC Hammer. It's kind of like it had that. You can't touch me. There's nothing you can do to hurt you. You can't touch me. You can't touch my soul. You can't touch my heart. You have no impact on my economy, which is really interesting. The people are afraid that they're going to lose their money, or it's going to affect their business, or they're not going to get, you weren't going to get the jobs anyway. Yeah. Especially if you were someone who doesn't fit the mold of a pale male, stale male. They weren't going to give you the jobs anyway. Stop deluding yourself. It's only you that can decide how you want to be in the world. So you need to speak up because you're cold. You need to do it because you're going to hurt your insides if you don't speak, if you don't share, if you don't advocate. And silence isn't an option anymore.
Yeah. As we all know, silence is violence and passivity is complicity.
Absolutely. People say, well, I don't want to go protest. You don't have to go protest in the street. But you can say, remember, you can speak up and run your family table when somebody's saying something about Asians, or they're saying something about Hispanics, or they're saying something about gays. You can speak up and say, I don't tolerate that language at my table. I don't care, Uncle Tom or, Aunt Mary, no, this space, I will not tolerate. You are, a bigot, a racist, you are that. You are phobic somewhere, in some shape, and you need to own up that. Don't tell me that because you're 60 or 70 or 80, you can't change. You're not dead yet. You can change.
As long as we are not there, we can change. Absolutely. So great advice. Call to Lead is going to be, the book is going to be on the market from April 19th. Is that correct?
Correct. Around April 19th, and it'll be on Amazon, and you could go to Power Women Worldwide. Will be by then, the new page will be up, and really buy the book, share the book, give it, we're asking, it's a great book for corporations to use a book in discussion groups. It's a great book. That's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely. And powerwomanworldwide.com will be the website. These are perfect final words for this podcast. So at the end, there's only one thing for me left to say. Pegine, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.